Hello everyone, we are live again with the Bootcamp 2020, and today, as Sergio says, we are going to be big boys. So, so we are going to start covering the AWS and related things. Sergio, why don't you start with?
Well, the point is, I'm trying to say is, I was trying to say in the last class was that we started with search, which was a very simple service. We learned then React and Gatsby and so on, Storybook and a lot of things. Then we covered simple serverless Lambda functions and so on. Then now is the time we move towards where we are going to do the actual deployment. And after search, we did Netlify. The whole idea was that to slowly introduce to the students the concept of cloud and how we use the cloud. Both Surge and Netlify are very simple services, but with simplicity comes the lack of complexity also, in the sense the lack of functionality also. So therefore, the good thing was Netlify was using AWS Lambda functions underneath. So therefore, the concepts will not change, and even the APIs will not change. But the deployment will change. Before we go forward, I'd like to welcome Varis Hassan to our group. He has been appointed as a teaching assistant. Zeeshan to you. He'll be helping you in the coding. And he is one of the students of this bootcamp. He has performed very well, exceptionally well. Varis, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
Sure. So basically, most of you, or at least some of you, may know me because I used to put up a lot of videos of my projects on this group. Well, yeah, and it feels amazing to be sitting here with you guys because it's kind of weird. I have been seeing you guys giving lectures for so many months, and I'm finally sitting here. So yeah, it feels amazing. So anyways, coming back to myself. So I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering from NED University here in Pakistan. And then I've also worked for a few companies just for a few months here in Pakistan because I got an offer from University of Auckland. So I went to New Zealand to pursue my master's degree in mechatronics engineering. And I also have 2 international publications in robotics, which are very interesting. I'll just discuss about them sometime later. So I joined this bootcamp a few months back. Actually, I joined it pretty late when you guys were already on project 6, I believe. Yeah. So I had to catch up, and here I am. So if I can do it, then you can too. Yeah. I just want to give you one message that it's okay to copy the code as long as you're understanding the code and the underlying concepts. But it's not okay to just copy the code and submit the project, because that actually kills the purpose of this bootcamp. Because my main aim was to bag all these essential skills, which are not readily available literally anywhere else. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Varis. That's you gave a very good message. That's some people just want to join our team and be promoted to, so therefore they come under pressure. Now, Varis has completed all the 12 projects. Up to now, there have been 21 students who have completed the projects, and other people are coming up, and so on. A lot of people are trying to work on the projects, and this thing will be open. We will continuously asking students to complete first 12 projects. Now there are 15 projects actually, and so on. Now let's get to the topic at hand. The topic at hand is that how do we move towards AWS? Zeeshan, could you put a little? Could you focus a little bit on how did AWS get started, and how did AWS basically we reached? We are going to use CDK as our infrastructure as code. So that first, you are going to give a little bit description, Varis, just to get you started and warmed up. Then you are going to give a description, and then maybe I am going to summarize.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, what we need to understand where AWS started and what was the purpose, the main purpose of the AWS when Amazon was a e-commerce application, or you say they were selling just some products online through their website. They become pretty big because it was a pretty good idea. But during that utilization, what was happening is whenever you have an application or a web application, there are some times when there is peak hours or peak days or peak months where you have a lot of users coming up your application using it, and there are a few low peak days or months when there are very low traffic on your website or application. Because of the huge response on the AWS, I'm forgetting the air. Uh, what AWS did is they had too many servers available for them, and they had a pressure or traffic in a Christmas or a Black Friday on such occasions. So they had to uh, induct too many heavy servers, which were not in use during maybe like you say March, April, May kind of months, where there is not a big traffic. So what happening was the resources were quite stale. There were no use of those resources. Servers were there, but there is no use because there is no traffic. So what they initially thought is that they have the resources. So what they can do is they can rent it out their servers because they had these servers. So the idea started from there. Today we easily say EC2 instances and servers and everything, but initially time when it was started, it was what you say $1 million idea, and that's why Amazon is $1 billion company now. That anyone who wanted a server, so at that time maybe early 90s or early 2000, it was difficult to get a good or heavy server with the low cost. Because if you want to develop an application, if you want to develop a mail application or any social network application, you need to have too many servers, and servers is a very what you say costly entity thing to purchase. So if sometimes you have a traffic, you need to buy a big servers to handle that traffic, and not everyone can do that. So that's why it was quite good idea for me or for anyone who want to develop an application, who does not have idea what the traffic will be in a month of December or January. So it is good for me to purchase a machine from a particular company, and when it's a peak days, I'll purchase that or rent it out that machine, and when there is no peak, I don't need it, I'll remove that instance, and I'll only pay whenever I use it. So that's the idea started from there. So initially they had these servers and they started selling renting out servers, like let's say a nano server, a micro server. So there are different, so that's where they started. Over the period, what happened is they started adding multiple services. So initially there were only virtual servers, you can buy it or rent it out. Then they started providing the S3 simple storage service, so that you can have a static file available all over the world, and that can be fastly accessed like a CDN, so that you can easily access. And then Elasticsearch, and today they have around 170 or 180 services available. They all built on the idea that create a service and then make it available for the user, which user can use whenever user want, and user will pay as you go. So whenever user use it, and user will pay it. So if today, if you want to create an application, a scalable application, you will rent it out EC2 instances. You want to static files, you will use the S3 services. You want user authentication, you will use AWS Cognito. You want AI services, you will use AWS AI service. And there are hundreds of service. So there, the ecosystem of AWS become quite huge. There are a lot of services. So once you are in AWS, you do not have to go anywhere else. The important thing which I missed, Lambda servers, Lambda functions. They introduced the Lambda function. Then they introduced Kubernetes, many other things. Now, the problem is when you are working on an application where you need too many services to include in your project. So what you need to do is you need to go to AWS. Initially, it's like what you say, it's a jungle. Each tree is in a service, so it's quite difficult to understand which service you want to use it. So first you need to understand that. Then for each service, you need to learn that service separately. Then when you want to use it, let's say, as I said in an example, EC2 instance, S3, load balancer, Cognito service. So you need to go individually on each service, and then you need to configure that service, set startup instance, let's say set up EC2 instance, create a bucket on S3, create users on Cognito, and then so they were all segregated, and you do have to go individually, and it's quite hell of a task. It's whenever you want it, it's hell of a task. If you update something, you change in your infrastructure, then you need to remember what changes you have done if you want to roll back. So that's why what AWS did is, it's quite short story. They have decades of history. So what they did is they come up with the idea of service which can give a single unity place where you can configure all your services, and they name it CloudFormation. The basic idea of CloudFormation was that you configure your servers declaratively. That means you create a file called YAML, and you mention in a YAML language that I need an EC2 instance, I need S3 service, I need Cognito, I need for XYZ, whatever service you want. You specify those services in the CloudFormation, and then you execute that service, and it just create your infrastructure. That's why the concept started, infrastructure as a service. The basic idea of EC2 instances is infrastructure as a service. So they created the CloudFormation for that, and it was a single file which can which have all of the configuration, and then you execute that file, and your infrastructure will be ready. Now the benefit, there are two benefits. You need to go at a single place to configure everything. If you want to change anything, you will go to that particular place, change it, and you execute again. All your services will be updated. Second benefit, if you change in your infrastructure and then there are some errors or there are some problems, so you can easily roll back, because that's a file, and you can version control it, and you can know that what the progression of a changes in my file, and you can identify all those things. So that's what the biggest idea, and it worked a lot. But the problem is you need to write a lot of lines of code in YAML. To create a single instance of EC2, you need to write a few lines of code, and if you have a multiple instances, you need to write and when it comes to accessing multiple services, there will be easily 5 to 1,000 lines of code in YAML file. So, and that's why AWS was mostly operation work, so that operation guy can do that, and developers were staying away from the old laws, manageabilities, instances, and all the infrastructure related. Developers were staying away because that was a huge thing to manage inside the AWS. Now recently what AWS is doing, I believe they shifted their focus on developers. So what they want is that developer can easily configure all those things, and developer do not have to worry about writing a 500 line of code and 1,000 line of code in just an YAML, putting your tabs and everything. And definitely, because it requires that you need to understand, you need to know what properties are there to type in YAML file. So that's why they started working on another idea called CDK, Cloud Development Kit, which is based on CloudFormation. The main idea of a CDK is that a developer can write a code, and on based in that code, developer can identify I need to create an EC2 instance, I need to access S3, I need to create a load balancer, I need to access a Cognito IMS service or any other services. So that's the idea. And because of that, uh, the basic idea of CDK was that, and to for the because it's for the developers. So what they did is they given us a programming code so that you can code your infrastructure. So instead of typing YAML file with 500 line of code, you just write a code, and based on that code they will create a CloudFormation and all your infrastructure. So the base idea was that, and because it's in a code, now we are in control as a developer, that I can write a for loop so that it can create multiple services. So I don't need to write for EC2 instance. If I want to create a 4 EC2 instance, I'm just giving an example, so I can create a loop, I can create a conditions. So the basic idea of CDK was to create infrastructure using code. So now the concept arises, infrastructure as a code. So you write a code, and then based on that code, they develop your infrastructure. So everything people were doing with CloudFormation will be possible with the CDK, but now you can type a code accessing your services. Once you run that code, it will actually generate a CloudFormation template, and then it will execute that for a template formation, and then it will create your infrastructure. So that's the base idea of cycle, what's started and where we are today.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Varis, give us your take on it.
So Zeeshan has explained it very nicely. I don't have this much knowledge about AWS or history of it. So because I've only been using it for since last few weeks. So I can tell you a bit about CDK. So basically, AWS is basically a company that provides services and servers that you can use on demand. And I actually read somewhere that this idea actually changed the IT industry, revolutionized the IT industry. So as Zeeshan said, that AWS has grown exponentially in the past few years, and now it offers so many services, 56 I think 100 services. So for an average developer, it became really hard to manage, to initiate, and to provision these services in their projects. So that's when AWS came up with this new service called CloudFormation, in which you could write and provision all your services in just a single text file, YAML or in YAML or a JSON format. But the problem was that it was a text file, and it was not very user friendly. And for complex projects, it would get really hard to manage them because they would get really long. So recently they came up with this new product, CDK, which has just been released, I think in 2019. So basically, CDK is next level of CloudFormation. It has some advantages over it. Number one, you can actually use any high-level programming language in it, like Python, JavaScript, TypeScript. So that's amazing. Secondly, it reduces your code. So if you were writing something that had 100 lines of code in CloudFormation, you can just do that in 20 lines of code in CDK. And thirdly, it introduced this concept of constructs, which are like reusable cloud components, just like we made reusable components in React. So this is also a very interesting concept, which we will cover, I think, in the later classes, in the upcoming classes. So yeah, so these advantages actually made CDK really popular. But the important thing to understand is that CDK is made on top of CloudFormation. So whenever you deploy your CDK project, it first gets converted into a CloudFormation file, and then AWS servers process it. So that is something most people don't know. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, I was reading somewhere that it was asked from the CTO of somebody asked CTO of AWS that if he had the chance to do it all over again, what would he do? Because right now, the history is that they started with virtual machines, and basically, in the very beginning, you had to send them the virtual machine on a CD. Later, it became automated and over the internet. So therefore, you send your workload and they ran it on their machine. He said that if he got a second chance and he had a benefit of hindsight, he would have started with serverless. Now, in 2015, AWS is the pioneer in this. They started this serverless revolution. But even before that, there was basically a concept of software as a service. We have to start with infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service, AWS started with infrastructure as a service, in which basically you gave your complete image of virtual machine and gave it to them, and asked them to run it for a certain period of time or indefinitely, whatever. But what has happened is that this infrastructure as a service, basically, even before serverless, had moved over to platform as a service. Platform as a service, Google had a platform where basically you were running your applications, providing some configuration, maybe, this serverless concept basically emphasized, what did it emphasize? The third thing I'm just getting confused a little bit, how to express it in a nice way. The first was infrastructure as a service. The second one is platform as a service. And top up of platform as a service, people were developing software as a service. If you are using, for example, Slack, it is a software as a service. You were previously using a Google Cloud and different services. It was platform as a service. And before that, it was infrastructure as a service. As we moved forward in the cloud business, the abstraction layer kept on increasing. Now, we have to understand the word abstract. What is abstraction? Abstraction is that you only focus, in order to solve any problem, what you do is only focus on the most important things. That is abstraction. Therefore, CDK is the ultimate level of abstraction. You only specify two or three things, the rest is default, and it automatically does it. Now, as I mentioned, there were three things: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, now software as a service, and Slacks and other applications. Now we are moving to another wave, which is serverless. That is our objective of this class, to teach you, which is serverless SaaS, which is serverless software as a service. We will learn to build serverless software as a service applications. Now, before we go forward, I'll request Zeeshan first to give his what he understands by serverless and what he understands by SaaS, and then Varis will give his take on what these two words mean, and when you combine them together, what does it mean?
Okay, so basically, serverless, first we need to understand what is serverless is. As we have discussed the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So whenever we are talking about and developing an application, so infrastructure is again the machines you have. Platform is Google, Harico, AWS has given us a platform where we can deploy our application, whatever code we write. We do not have to worry about what server they are using. We do not have to worry about if it will run out of memory, what will happen. They will manage everything. We just deploy our application and they will run it. That's what the platform as a service. But when we deploy our application, that application was initially was a monolithic application. So whole our application or complete code was in a single server, and we deploy a complete server on a platform or on a server or anywhere we want. So when we were using the platform as a service, we were using services from the Google, Harico, AWS, and many others. So we were deploying a complete application on this server. So what we had to do is we had to deploy our application. Now, if there is a request to the application server, that's well and good. If there is no request, the server is there, infrastructure is there, your platform is there, nobody is using it, but company is charging you. So either it's a Hariku or a Google or anyone, you have deployed your application on their servers. So they are charging you continuously because the service is running. It's keep running and nobody using it. If sometimes people are using it, then it's beneficial. If people are not using it, then you incurring a cost of infrastructure because you are using their platform. So what they come up with the idea is that use code or a server whenever it is required. So you do not need to deploy your application and keep the server running all the time. Whenever there is a request for your code, the service, whatever the server initially the AWS provided that. So what AWS Amazon did is Amazon said your code will not be running all the time on our servers. Whenever there will be a request for your code, we'll spin up a virtual machine. We'll create a small virtual machine in which there will be a small particular code which is required, and that will start up and we will entertain the request, and the server will remain for some time, so that if there is another request and if there is a particular time spent and there is no request, they will destroy that server, remove that instance, and there will be no use and there will be no cost. So whenever there is a request, they will create a server. It will stay for some time. For easy understanding, let me say that whenever there is a request, it will span up a server, a virtual server, a small, it will run your particular code which is required, and then the request is done, the server is down. Then you have, definitely you are working on an application, there will be a multiple use cases. So what you will do is you will create a small chunk, which is we call now microservices. So we'll create a separate microservices and they will be deployed separately as a separate functions on AWS servers, and whichever use case is being required, customer send a request, user send a request, that server will start, it will entertain the user and then it will down whenever request to the other application. So the benefit is if you have 100 of use cases and there might be only 5 or 10 are being used quite too many times and others are not being used, so they will be not frequently, so there will be not incurring any cost to us. Only the application or part of a code which is being used, that will be running on the server, so there will be no infrastructure continuous cost, because whenever the server customer send a request, they will start a server, and based on the usage, let's say your code runs for 30 seconds and it consumes, let's say, 0.5 MB of bandwidth or storage, so they will charge based on that. That's what the idea started for the serverless, that only runs a code when it is required, otherwise not. So that's why they call it serverless. It's serverless does not mean there is no server, but there is no monolithic server. There is a server, but it will be on demand. Whenever there is a request, there will be a server. They start a server and then. So that's what the idea of serverless started. And when you call a serverless software as a service, so that means you will be building an application on for which the server will be a serverless. So all your server-side code will be a separate microservices, and there can be 10, 20 or 100 services, and they will be deployed separately on a serverless platform. In this case, let's say in AWS, and they call it a Lambda functions. So that will be, and whenever user call, let's say you create a service for sign up and another service for login. So whenever a request for a sign up, it will spin up a Lambda function. It will function will execute and it will end. I'm just for the example, it will not end directly. They'll keep the function for a while, so that there are multiple requests. So they entertain the requests and they don't need to start a virtual machine again and again. So that's the basic idea of how you got into the serverless and how serverless software as a service will work.
Okay. Varis, serverless, What's your take on serverless and
Yeah.
SaaS?
The problem with the conventional servers was that they were easy to make, but the problem was the management, like the usage of resources and the scalability. So, like for instance, if no one was using your server, you were still being charged, like for no reason. And for instance, if at some time of the day when there are many users on your website, then you would have to adjust the resources accordingly. So it was a headache. So it was really hard to manage. So then these services like AWS and Netlify came along. So they said that you just code what you want to run on your server and don't worry about anything else. Do not worry about policies. Do not worry about all the hard stuff. We'll do that for you. So yeah, I think we should call them worryless or tensionless because they just
They're very good name.
Yeah.
Because serverless is a confusing name.
Yeah.
People, by serverless, you think there is no server. Actually, it means you don't have to manage the server. So therefore, a better name which you gave is a better name.
And
That's
there is
right.
also, sorry to interrupt, there is also because it's now it's scalable unlimitedly. You do not have to worry about the scalability as well.
Yeah, so AWS says that you just push your code and we'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry about the traffic on your website. You don't have to worry about the scalability. So I think, yeah, it's a revolutionary technology. SaaS is software as service. So I remember when I was a kid, I would download Microsoft Word on my computer and only I could use it. But now you can see we have Google Docs. At one instance, like many people are working on the same document. So this is software as service where many people can actually use. This is multi-tenant software service where many people can use single service, and all of them are sharing the same resource, the same instance of the application. And another good example would be Netflix. Like you don't have to download anything, like and yet everyone can use it. So this is software as service. And serverless SaaS is when an application which is deployed on a serverless cloud, on a cloud with a serverless backend, is being used as a software as service. Yeah.
Yes, very nice. Now, just to reiterate, what we want to do is we want to create the next Slack, which is right now about to be purchased by Salesforce. I don't know whether this transaction completes or not, for a lot of money. The point is that the software has moved from the desktop to the internet. The main thing about is multi-tenancy. Now, what is multi-tenancy? Zeeshan.
Basically, the multi-tenancy, the basic idea you can start from as you can see we are using Gmail. Gmail is a software as a service. We can use email services from the Gmail, but it's not limited to me only. Anyone can use it. So I have a Gmail service. I have created my account, and all the services from the Google are available to me because of that account. Now anyone can create account on Gmail and then can use it. So multi-tenancy means the application is not uh, available only for the one person, as Sarja initially mentioned that someone initial days of EC2 people have to create a CD and then send to the Amazon. I have actually done this in the very first in my job where I was working for a company. So what we had to do is we have to create an application and dump into the CD and then go to the customer and then install on the customer machine. So I did. I actually did those things. So basically, the problem in that case, when you dump an application on a CD and then or a USB and then install of a particular machine, then it's a single instance and only one person can use it on that particular machine. When you create an application for the large scale over the web, now the benefit is anyone can use it if you allow that person. So the multi-tenancy means any in other example, in case of a shopping cart application, when you want to create an application where multiple shoppers can come, shop owners, and create their shop and public can come and purchase it. So this is multi-tenancy because multiple owners shop owners does not need to create separate service for themselves. They use single service, create a shop over there, and user can purchase from that. So that's the basic of multi-tenancy.
Yes, Waris.
Yeah, so I think there are two basic concepts: single tenancy and multi-tenancy. So as I said before, that when I was a kid, I used to I would use Microsoft Word on my desktop. So that was just only I was using that Microsoft Word. So the entire instance of that application was just for me. So the advantage over here was that there was no data breach, like it was secure. But again, at the same time, it was expensive because I was using the entire instance of the application. I was using all the resources myself. Whereas in the multi-tenancy, a lot of people are using the same application. But the challenge in this kind of format is that is how to isolate the data of tenants. Like I don't want to be seeing Sarzia's emails in my Gmail, right? So that's like a very important thing to do. So that's one of the challenge in multi-tenancy. But obviously, it's more efficient because a lot of people are sharing the same resources. Like many people could be sharing the same database, but obviously the database is isolated, so I can't access Sarzia's data or Zeeshan's data. So yeah, so multi-tenancy is like is the new thing now. Yeah.
Yes. So therefore, the SaaS applications are usually going to be multi-tenant, where, for example, you go to Slack, you create your organization, you create your team, and in that team, a lot of people, you can create multiple teams. So therefore, individual can also create multiple teams, but in each team, the messages will be only being seen by the members of that team, not by other people. So therefore, now the other question is, after we are done with AWS serverless and we learn how to develop SaaS, will our journey be complete? We have traveled a lot in recent months. Will our journey be complete? No. It is going to the beginning. Why? How? In the next classes, we are going to, and in this class also, we are going to learn how to configure AWS, how to use, deploy a website, how to create a database, and so on. But for example, if we had to develop a intelligent app which was using AI services, the main structure will remain the same, which will be AWS, a modern app which has microservices, which is highly scalable, but we will start also using AI services. Now, I don't want to go into detail. For now, just think that it will be a AI microservice which will request, maybe update the model and request a prediction. Then we go to blockchain. In blockchain, we will want to develop a dApp. Now, what is a dApp? Zeeshan will explain. But we will still be using all these technologies and also send messages to a blockchain. So therefore, they are managed blockchains on AWS. But the whole SaaS serverless will be remain the same application. Then there is IoT. So therefore, the point is, in IoT, you are sending messages from different Internet of Things. You're sending different from different devices. We'll use a particular AWS service to get that message, and the other parts will remain the same. The point is, no matter what, even for conversational user interfaces, which are called bots for laymen, conversational interfaces, bots, the backend will remain the same. It will be different AWS services which will be learned to build using CDK. So I just use the word dApp, which some people might not understand. Zeeshan, could you just briefly elaborate what is a dApp?
Basically, dApp is a concept applied when you are working, when you are talking about building an application with the blockchain. So it is a decentralized app, because blockchain, I'm not going into detail how blockchain works, and the blockchain is called a decentralized blockchain is a decentralized because there is a community which is running as instances, and all those instances has the same content, and they work in a community. So that's what the blockchain works. There is a lot of detail, I'm not going into that. The concept is, whenever, in case of the application we have worked up till now, whatever we have built with Gatsby and the Netlify server, What we do is we create a client and then we send a request to a particular server. And that server has a URL, either it's a Netlify function or it's something else. In that case, we have a server, we know where our server is, and we have a URL of that particular server. In blockchain, there is no single server. Every instance in a community is a server. So it's run by a community. So the idea is that no single machine gets loaded with all the requests. So it's and because of that, it's in a quite secure, because if you down one server, if you hack a one machine, all other machines are available. So that's not a problem. So in that case, there is no single server to us. There is no single domain URL to us, or there is no single IP which you send a request, because there are thousands of servers running in the network. So what dApp is, you create a web application just like we do now. It's a client side, but it will not send a request to one particular server. It will send a request to a blockchain instance, and the library which is work with the a Web3 library, that library find out a particular server and then send a request on that server. So there is no guarantee that it will always send a request to a same server. So you will be entertaining by different server all the time. So the case of dApp is you create a web application and you send a request. There is no central server, so that can be any server from the network. That's how decentralized. So you have a server, but it's not a single point in a point of contact for you. There will be hundreds of thousands of servers for you. So that's what how it works. And definitely, you are talking about the blockchain. So you are actually creating, in case of Ethereum, you are creating a smart contract and you are sending from the client side, you're sending a request to a blockchain which has a smart contract, and you will be executing functions for that. I have abstract a lot of things, but at the basic, that will be the idea of dApps.
Yes. Now, thank you so much, Zeeshan. A wonderful explain. Now, what we are going to do is think about it. We are going to learn to build applications. There is another word that has come up recently, which is called multi-cloud. What people want to do is use not just AWS, but AWS, Google, and Azure, and maybe Alibaba, maybe IBM together. Now, someone might ask me that, sir, you have selected CDK, but CDK is not a multi-cloud tool. You will only be restricted to AWS. Of course, AWS has more than 50% of the market share, most of the main applications, but still, it is not 100% of the market. Now you have to understand, I was also a bit reluctant in the beginning that I wanted a multi-cloud tool. But the good thing is now CDK is going there. Cloud Development Kit is you have a Kubernetes CDK, you have a Terraform CDK. Terraform is a tool which basically is a multi-cloud tool. So therefore, just like it right now, CDK creates a CloudFormation template. It will create a Kubernetes instructions. It will create Terraform instructions, and Terraform instructions are then converted to Azure instructions or Google Cloud instructions and so on. So therefore, CDK will become, I suspect, nobody can predict the future, but I suspect that CDK will become the new tool for developers, to basically people like me who are not infrastructure specialists. But when we are developing app, which we are now moving towards, some people might not like it, NoOps. NoOps means that we don't need, Zeeshan, what does NoOps mean? We don't need operation guys?
The basic idea is we don't need operation guys. Basically, the operation has become, they converted into the code. So I'll be writing code to manage the servers and infrastructure.
Therefore, the point is, I as a developer, Now it was critical because previously AWS was not focused towards that much towards developers. They were not building tools for developers. Now with CDK, I can see that I don't need anybody. I'm a single man army. I can create my own infrastructure. I can write my own code. I can deploy it and I can monitor it. I can observe it. Okay, what is happening? If everything is run, most probably what I'll do is I'll deploy it and initially I will observe it and then hand it over to some operation guy who doesn't have to be that technical. He will be technical and he continuously monitors because I don't have time. I most probably move to the next application or whatever happens. The point is, now CDK is going to become a friend of all the developers in the world because most applications right now being built are cloud-based. So therefore it is, and for me, I don't have to learn another language. Varis has been trained from in this bootcamp from the beginning in JavaScript and TypeScript. So he will continue using JavaScript and TypeScript. The only thing is, and the second thing is, server components. We had client components in React. Now we have server components. I love it. And when you are talking about components, you are talking about reuse. Once I create imagine the other way of doing it. There are a number of other ways of doing it. First thing is you go to the graphic user interface of AWS and click and do some configuration. But the problem is it is not repeatable. If you forgot something, if something goes wrong, you can not recreate. And in my case, after 3 months, I don't even remember what I did because so many things are going on in my life, in development wise, not on my private life, but in development wise, so many things are going on that I don't remember what I did. And how do I repeat it? Which I don't even remember what I did. Now, we have all the code in my language, which I am comfortable with, which I can commit to GitHub, and other people can share and see what is wrong with me. Maybe I made a mistake. I can then review it. Other people can review it. So therefore, as compared to going to AWS and doing all the configuration, this is 10 times more efficient for developers. Of course, for a newbie who doesn't know development and not extensive knowledge, he will prefer maybe doing click, but it is not scalable. If you use the graphic user, you are stuck because initially we have to learn CDK and so on. But if you do it the graphic way, it is comparatively easy. You just go to an interface and just understand the concept and do it. But it's not repeatable. And for companies, it will be a disaster. What if I leave? The new guy doesn't even know what I did. Now everything is documented. Your company will basically become infrastructure as code. The whole company infrastructure, instead of having servers and all the rest of the stuff, you will have CDK code and you will do work with it. Now, Zeeshan, should we do a hello world today?
Yes, we can do it. It will take time because we need to explain everything, the IMA users and the creation of account and the groups and all these things. So do we have time to maybe around 20-25 minutes?
I think we have about completed 50 minutes. We have about 25 minutes. And we have Varis with us. And what we can do is, even if we don't finish it, just a simple thing. The first thing is, let's first introduce where are people going to get the AWS account.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Okay, so that's the main repository URL, which is...
Could you increase the focus a little bit?
Yes, I'm doing it. Okay, so github.com/panacloud-modern-global-apps/full stack serverless CDK. So that's the main URL. The Satya has created, and all the details, link, relevant information are available over here. So you can see there are steps as well. We'll follow them during the next few weeks. And there's a complete detail what you can do. The GitHub starter pack, AWS free tier, CDK link, and all the details what you're going to use.
Okay.
And
Now,
there is
sorry, just I want to add something. The most important thing which we need to do is you go to AWS free tier. The only problem students face is that some of them don't have credit cards.
yes.
In Pakistan, a lot of them don't have credit cards. Internationally, it is not that much of a problem. But in Pakistan, but it will give you this free tier will give you about 1 year of free service,
Yes.
up to a limit.
Yes.
It's an amazing offer. And I'll suggest that if you don't have a credit card, you can ask your friend or a relative to. We in Pakistan are very social. So therefore, we can. I know it's not very polite to ask somebody for their credit card number, but in Pakistan, that is a norm. People ask favors from their relatives and friends. So therefore, if you don't have a credit card, you can, because they are not going to charge anything. They are just going to charge $1 and then give you back that $1. So therefore,
yeah, they just wanted to verify the credit card, so they will charge $1 in return. So for the next 12 months, they will not charge you anything.
Varish, how did you get the AWS account?
I think I used the link that you posted on the Facebook group, the student package.
The other option is, but recently, yesterday, somebody told me that GitHub student package has removed, which I don't understand. It is anything is possible in this changing environment. That GitHub has removed the AWS offer in this. I was seeing it. You go down, Zeeshan?
Yes, it's still available. You can see.
No, I think the problem is that many students don't have a university email. So I think you can only sign up on this if you have a university email.
Okay.
Yeah, now, you need a particular domain URL, URL for email.
Therefore, the problem is either you need a credit card, or you need a the AWS. You can get AWS through GitHub Student Developer Pack, as well as you get a free tier. In the free tier, you will need a credit card. In GitHub Student Developer Pack, you will need an email from your university email address, where you can click and say that I'm student. Therefore, all these services in GitHub Student Pack are free. You go to AWS's. Can you go to the?
Where is infrastructure?
I think they have removed. It seems that student was right. I can't see
AWS.
Anyway.
Okay.
The free tier is already there.
Yes.
I think they must have got some disagreement between GitHub and, because it's a Microsoft company and AWS, they are competitors.
Oh yes. That might be the big reason.
So therefore,
they need to market AWS. That's why Azure is there, I guess.
Yeah, they want to market Azure. So therefore, they have removed and Heriko. I think DigitalOcean and Heriko they did not remove because it is not a major competitor to Azure. The major competitor to Azure is AWS, and I understand all of them are businesses and they don't want to give prominence to their competitors from their platform. Most probably that's why they removed AWS, but we are not sure. It seems they have removed it. But anyway, so therefore the other option is, could you go back to the page again? AWS free tier, and basically you basically get this thing and start working on it. Now, go ahead.
Yes, please. So I was saying that as soon as you create your account, you will have access to these services. So you can have a 5 GB of S3 storage, 750 hours of EC2, 1 million calls of Lambda, and so there are around I guess 100 or some so services available to us.
Okay. Now, what we are going to do is, we are not going to go over start of CDK, but because there was not much time is left. But what we are going to do is just show you, you can start. The best thing is if you do it on your own. Now, I am very proud teacher of students who have created. Can you go back to our GitHub repository?
Yes.
This, I initially started it and will review it continuously. This Varis and his team has created this repository because we started off a little early on CDK. So therefore, it's not very difficult. Varis, who are the team members? How many people are in your team, and how did they go about building the repository?
Yeah, so we're 5 people in total. So we actually learned everything on our own, and now we're trying to put it in a repo so that all of you can learn it. So it was really hard for us to learn because we did not have any resources. And I think we have actually broken down everything into baby steps. So it's going to be really easy for you guys to learn if you just go through the repository. And yep, so most of the stuff that we learned was from project 13 and from project 14. Yeah.
Okay. And the thing is, this your job is go to step number 0. Zeeshan, could you open it and just and basically zoom it a little bit, because and you just follow the readme file, which is, if you go down, could you show me the readme file of this? So therefore, just go over it. We Varis and Zeeshan and Daniyal in the next class are going to start going in detail with CDK, because we have not much time. We have basically covered most of the theory, why we are doing it, what is the objective. This is where the big boys play. All the major companies that are coming up, new startups, basically used, and CDK will make our job very easy. Otherwise, we have to become an operations guy also, because in small companies there are no separate operations guy. So Zeeshan, would you like, and Varis, would you like to just sum up and how, if you just tell us how excited you are?
I just wanted to add that for the step 0, 1, you just follow these links sequentially, because to set up an CDK, to start working with the AWS and CDK, you first need to have create your account, then you need to install AWS CLI, then you need to create I am a user, you need to access your credentials, then you need to install CDK, then you need to configure your AWS. That all will be done using the CLI. So that's what you need to follow from here. You need to install TypeScript if you have already not have it. So once you sign up, you need to create your credential, create user. So as you can see here, create your user. So this link guides you how to create your user. This will give you the credential, install these TypeScript, then install the AWS CLI. AWS CLI is a complete tool for the AWS. CDK is an additional tool which is for the CDK. So you need to install AWS CLI. Then you need to configure it. So you need to call, when you go to the CLI, then you need to call the configure and then ask a credential key and ID and everything. You need to configure that. Then you will install the CDK. Initially you don't need it Docker, but install it so that you will need it in future. Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, then TypeScript, CDK, and then you will be start using this. So the most important thing for us is the CDK link, which is, I guess, on the parent root. These are the links for starting with the first application, and this is the AWS CDK link. If you pick this link as a central point to learn everything, so you will have all these things over here. You have a developer guide, API reference, other links, construct library, Then you have a very good resource, CDK workshop, examples. So you can, so this workshop guides you how you can use it, the CDK, and this examples link provide you the lot of examples with the TypeScript. So pick this URL as a central for your learning, and then everything will come. This URL and the important URL, the developer guide. This. Consider this link as your book for the CDK, and you need to learn, go through all these navigation menus. It will explain too many things for how you will be using the CDK. So that's the starting point for.
Zeeshan, could you also send the link of our repository? Some students are asking in the comment section, so
Sure,
that
sure.
and do that. Therefore, Varis, would you like to sum up?
Yeah. Actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks back, Sir Zia told us to make Project 13, and he warned us that it's going to be really hard because there are not many resources available. And I was like, how hard could it be? But when I tried to do it, I couldn't find anything. I just spent 2 days. I was actually lost for 2 days. But the thing is that I actually learned a lot when I was trying to learn CDK. And unfortunately, you guys would not be able to do that because you would just copy the code from the repository. But yeah, the main thing is that if you actually struggle and try to find resources yourself, then you're going to learn a lot and you will have a better chance of mastering it. Yeah, but yeah, I'm really excited to actually master AWS. And another thing is that when you look at AWS, Netlify looks like a joke to you because it just has Lambda functions, whereas in AWS, the Lambda function is just 1 out of 100 services. So yeah, it's a huge thing, and it will take time to master. Even I don't know much of the stuff right now, but yeah, I'm still learning. Yeah.
Most people don't. And to understand all the 150 or 190 services is not possible. We are going to just focus on serverless thing. And the thing is, I want to tell all the students, when they talk about Varis joining the team, and the 5 people who have also joined the team as teaching assistants, and they are working on it. So the good thing is you feel happy. But at the same time, some students might feel depressed that they are not given the chance. I want to assure everybody that is a purely merit-based system. I do not know any of the students. I did not know Varis before we selected him. He was selected because he completed his 12 projects. I think he was the second one who did it. The first one was Mateen, and he has a more international exposure. He has been interacting with global. He has been to New Zealand and he has been experienced. Therefore, he was preferred to Mateen. But Mateen will be used in other ways because his code is being used. And we will, in some of one of the in the next 2-3 classes, we will invite all of them to basically come and introduce themselves and so on, because we are just getting started. Therefore, I want to assure every student of this bootcamp that we only value merit. Anybody who comes up, these 5 people are the best of the bootcampers so far. Of course, new bootcampers will come. They will be working on learning their foundations, and they might be better than Varis. But at this point, I can assure you that there are nobody better than these 5 individuals of thousands of people who are attending this bootcamp, and will continuously do so because it's recorded classes. It will be continuously be used to learn. And the thing is, now another thing, certification. AWS certification. The thing is that CDK is so advanced right now, the certification does not cover it. But I guess in a year's time, so therefore what we are doing is preparing ourselves for the next certification that is going to come up with AWS. So therefore we have already, because right now AWS is focusing a lot on CDK. They are putting a lot of resources, which I like, because we want to work something which is professional and has all the bugs removed. So therefore we are in, I'm quite sure, and once you start learning it, Therefore, we are preparing ourselves for I guess, I'm just guessing, of course, I have no inside information, that by 2021, the new certification, the next version of the certification, we are preparing for that AWS certification. And basically, it is going to be not that hard, but the concepts are hard in the sense that if you don't have a programming background, you don't know React, you don't know programming language, then it will be hard. Because previously, AWS was done by a lot of operations guys who were not very good at programming. But now this thing is targeted towards programmers, how to create infrastructure and all the rest of the stuff. Thank you very much. In the next class, we'll start with the hello world of step number 0, and we'll start working on it. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.